So, hello everybody. We are live. I am live today with Martin Brown, and he is the CEO of Elephant's Child. I know Martin because we've been doing a little bit of work together, which is great. I've been helping him with some of his clients on their digital. And Martin, I'd love to know a little bit more about Elephant's Child and the work that you're doing to help SMEs scale and grow, and all the fantastic things you're doing for them.
Yeah, very good. Good to be with you, Emmy. A different platform for me. It's live, so please be gentle with me. So Elephant's Child is about supporting small to medium enterprises, and we really focus on 4 outcomes, that being turnaround if the business is in distress, how to grow a business with value over time so that it survives and smashes through those glass ceilings and creates value. And then the 3rd and 4th areas are really about preparing a business. So preparing a business to attract the right sort of funding for growth, and then preparing a business that wants to exit so that they're well prepared to maximize the value of their exit and make sure their transaction is deliverable and it meets their ultimate aspirations. So that's what we do. We're about working with SME business leaders to help drive their growth. And importantly, we need and want them to enjoy it along the way. I mean, it can be very tough and lonely at the top, as you well know.
It's so important, isn't it, to enjoy the journey? I say that to my clients, it's not just about the exit and then you get lots of money, and then actually lots of money doesn't necessarily bring you all that happiness. It's actually enjoying the journey and making an impact along the way. It's so interesting, Martin, because I think before meeting you, I hadn't, we sold our business, but we didn't ever really plan for it. And I think we could have planned for it a lot better. And so before we start talking about sort of the pandemic and coming out the other side of the pandemic, I just wanted to sort of make that point that quite often we're so busy running our businesses, scaling our businesses, that we don't necessarily think about what is the end goal and how do we prepare ourselves for sale. But why is that so important?
Yes, it's like that James Bond thinking, Emmy, isn't it? Always know where your exit is. I mean, we don't think about absolute exits. What we tend to think about is actually how do you create a range of exit options? And I think the reason that that's important is you always want to have an exit option as a business leader because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. We've got programs now that we're running that have been forced to happen because of life events.
One of those life events, Martin? What's that noise?
Sorry, I've got some building work happening downstairs. He's just kicked in at the most inopportune time.
Don't worry, I've had the same thing. I've had builders upstairs, and they always start drilling just as I'm doing a webinar or something.
Yeah, this is the Tyler ensuring me that he was going to have one of those quiet moments, but clearly that's not the
case. He's anyway, cutting up tiles.
Yeah. So exit options. Yeah. Why do we think about exit options? I'll give you 3 examples. We have a situation at the moment of a construction business where the owner, the majority shareholder, has died prematurely and left the business in trust to his 21-year-old son. That is causing a lot of stress. We've got a business exit on the go at the moment that's been forced due to ill health. And we've got another exit on the go, which is being done effectively to fund a divorce. So life events catch up with you. And life catches up with you. And I think one of the things that we've seen about the pandemic is it's kind of forced a lot of business leaders to take a step back and really think about what the business is doing. And in our view, the business needs to enable your wider life aspirations. And if you don't take a step back to do that cliched thing about working on the business, time just drifts on. Last weekend, I spoke to a business leader, 72 years of age, about to launch his next product. And his partner's kicking him under the table saying, isn't it about time you wound down and spent some time with the grandchildren and now great-grandchildren? So, time just moves on, and it seems to move on so quickly when you hit a certain age. The ability to plan and have exit options means you've always got choices. Our toughest gigs actually are not when the numbers are down necessarily. It's when people have lost their passion or their mojo for the business, because it becomes a millstone and it affects health and lots of other things at that stage. So exit options is a critical focus for us.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think that's the thing. When you lose the passion, and with our media agency for quite some time, we just wanted to sell it. We just wanted to move on. We were working in the gambling industry. We didn't really feel passionate about that industry. We sort of got ourselves stuck in that niche, and we just wanted to move on. And I'm sure because we slightly lost the passion and the drive. We didn't exit at the amount that we could have done. But interestingly, our other business, which was, more exciting, we were approached by a buyer, and then obviously, we ended up doing much better. But I just think it's a really interesting topic, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily, and us included, don't necessarily prepare for that. But I also love the way that you're helping founders, find joy and enjoyment in their businesses. I think that's really important. So we were talking earlier before we came on about the pandemic, and how are businesses going to come out of the pandemic? What you're talking to lots of businesses, you're in that space. What are your thoughts at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So we were doing our own planning in the fourth quarter of last year and wondering what 2021 was going to be on the back of such an incredible context of 2020. So there were themes that we could predict. We knew that COVID-19 was going to morph. We didn't quite know how that was going to go. We knew that Brexit was going to find its own route and play itself out. And then there was a sort of wider agenda around ESG, the environment and sustainability and governance and all those things. So we could see those things coming together. We started to see market activity pick up in about October of last year, and that's absolutely followed on into the first quarter of this year. So it's intriguing. I think the pandemic has had that effect of people taking a step back and saying, right, what are my life goals now? What does the business need to do? So I think that combination of unique factors has really played into the hands of businesses that want to grow. There is a wall of money out there. That money is beginning to transition from CBILS and bounce back to business loan recovery. But actually, as you well know, Emmy, there are businesses out there that are getting fully funded for progressive reasons. There still remains very few companies that are ready and prepared to attract the right kind of funding. So we think that's an opportunity. One of the things that we get into with our clients, as you do, is opening them up to the art of the possible. Did you know if you had a digital strategy, you could achieve this? And people don't really know about how they can affect those exit options. What does a management buyout mean? What does an employee ownership trust mean? Can you really do a partial exit, a full exit? What's private equity? What's a trade sale? What do all these things look like? So I think that combination of factors has really been perpetuated by the budget a couple of weeks back. Lots of speculation that we're going to get hit with heavy tax going forward to pay for this pandemic. We think that's absolutely got to be the case. But actually in the last budget, they didn't touch it. And that's kind of perpetuated a mood of positivity. So business owners are now thinking about, actually, there is a mood here. There's a moment. Where do I want to take my business? This is a fantastic time to accelerate your business out of the pandemic, because those unique circumstances won't repeat themselves again. Some will, but some won't. And I think one small thing that is a real trigger in my mind is what's going to happen with capital gains tax and business asset disposal relief that we used to call entrepreneurs relief. We suspect, it's speculation, we suspect there's a window between now and the autumn budget where people can really take advantage of that £1 million level at 10%. And if you're selling part of all of your business and enjoying those preferential rates, that is definitely something that should be on your mind at this stage. So lots of factors, Emmy, lots of unique factors, a very, very active market. And we're convinced that the pandemic has been a contributor to that, ironically. And we think 2021 is going to be a great year for lots of businesses.
Well, that's really good, positive news, because I think a lot of businesses struggled last year. I know in March I lost 70 or 80% of my business because I work with. Were you the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And actually, what I did, interestingly enough, was I spent the first 3 months reaching out to strategic partners, people with access to my audience. And I reached out to you, to Elephant's Child. And I said, I think we're kind of in the same space. I'm not sure. And it turned out that actually what we're doing is quite complementary and that we can support each other. And I think I always say to my clients, if you can continue to market yourself and look for opportunities, even in recessions and pandemics, you're going to come out the other side fighting. And I know that's what you've done as well, Martin, but it's really great to hear that for those people who've been really badly affected, and maybe haven't even been able to open their businesses because of what's going on, that 2021, that you really believe that things seem to be picking up.
Yeah, and it's quite diverse, isn't it? I mean, I know the day after that sort of pathway, if you like, lockdown pathway was announced, we've got connections with businesses that are in the entertainment sector, and they were busy booking theatres and tours and artists. And so that mass audience, if that sector can come live and all of the arts can follow with it, that would be fantastic. I think there is that sense of optimism that all sectors are going to have at least the opportunity to have a go at creating their new norm. And of course, the one thing that we would reflect on at that stage is, well, what is your plan and what's your strategy? Because if your model needs to change or be pivoted to take advantage of that new market, now is the time to take a step back. I mean, and you're perfectly placed there, Remy, because I mean, you know, that digital footprint in terms of whatever it means for your business is absolutely core to those scale-up opportunities.
It's so interesting, isn't it? So I started working with a client and they do cardiac rehab and cardiac prevention. They've got an amazing clinic on Harley Street. They are like the best at what they do. But before the pandemic, they never offered virtual, services. They had everyone coming to the clinic and they had an amazing experience there. Because of the pandemic, they've obviously had to pivot. And as a result of that, they're now going to come out with a virtual business and the Harley Street clinic. And, you know, they can help people on a global basis. And that's so exciting. So obviously, last year was very difficult for those kind of businesses. But I think that they're going to come out the other side with a whole new revenue stream. And as you said, if you've got a strategy and you've got a plan, you've got the right resources in place, then, you know, it's an incredible opportunity. So I always talk about the importance of having a strategy and a plan, but I'd love to hear it from someone else. Why is it critical that these small businesses have a proper strategy and plan in place for growth and they're not just sort of, you know, winging it in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, the pandemic has really brought that thinking to life. The ability to have a strategy and plan gives you focus. It gives you clarity of the things you should be doing, and importantly, the things that you shouldn't be doing. And in many people's strategy, those differentiators, those decisions are as important as each other. We find a lot of businesses that aren't constrained by opportunity, and therefore, ironically, it's the things that they say no to that really carry them forward. In the absence of a strategy and plan, when things like a pandemic come out of nowhere, everything is a variable, everything is in chaos, and you don't know where to go next. And I think as a business leader, that can be very overwhelming. If you have a course of travel, if crises come along or opportunities come along, at least you've got something to flex around. And you can do that in a structured and considered way. You can make decisions as opposed to decisions being forced on you. And even if you're put in a situation where we all have by the pandemic that none of us could have predicted the scale of it, at least we know where and how to flex our business model. And then you can take advantage of silver linings that come out of that. You know, our own version of digital is a very light touch, as you know, but one of the things we were able to do last year is use forums like this. And that's allowed us to get right the way across the UK and Ireland to thousands of people and just communicate and support them. I spoke to an education business yesterday. They're seeing a huge opportunity coming up around homeschooling and personal schooling because of the deficit that's been created in education because of the disruption that we're seeing. And that's a whole new revenue stream for them going forward. So the ability to have a strategy and plan, we think, gives you the opportunity to set you a direction of travel, consider what it looks like over time, but then also flex if you need to. Opportunities will come along, markets will emerge, crisis and things will happen that the old adage, you don't know what you don't know. You're set to find your way through that and flex and ultimately find a great way forward.
It's interesting because where we saw success was in finding new opportunities for growth, these kind of untapped areas. So, you know, I suppose we did have a strategy, but we were also aware of like what was going on in the market and we were able to, you know, capitalize on that. So what does it look like when you do that piece of work for a client? You know, when you do their strategy for them and a plan, is that a 2-year thing, a year thing, a 5-year thing?
Yeah, I guess the first thing to say, Emmy, is it looks scary when you're going into it. because it's different, isn't it? And people are a bit apprehensive. Some people actually are quite cynical about it. Others get quite defensive because there's this notion that they think they should know everything, and you really shouldn't. It's the reason that you have people like us around, because we've got our specialisms. So we like to keep it very gentle. We guide people through a process. We don't ask them to prepare too much. The two things that we ask for is come with an open mind and just commit yourself to a process, and we'll get a good outcome. We really like, in this case, to focus on plans that can be implemented. And for us, that typically takes 3 full contact days with a client, so quite heavy days. Day 4, we want to be in implementation mode. And for us, that's normally a business plan that might run to, say, 30 pages, but 3 core elements. A statement of what we call strategic intent. So what is the direction of travel? What's our purpose? And what's our method of growth? Is it organic? Is it buy and build? Is it a hybrid version? The second thing we think about is, to your point, we like a 3-year time horizon. In fact, you can probably see that chart behind me. Those
you
3
like your charts?
Yeah, I am living the dream, Emmy. Those 3 concentric circles, year 1, year 2, year 3. We like a 3-year horizon. We think people can get their heads around it as best we can. We can understand big changes that might come economically, politically, socially, environmentally. We think 3 years is a good timeline, and it forces you to think about things that really do take that time. And then we get very focused. Once we've got those aspirations set and we think we've got good alignment around it, then we get specific on the current financial year. And then that's all about smart objectives, very specific actions and ownership and measures, so that we can really drive the implementation through. So we like to think like that, because as we say, on day 4 for us, it's about implementation. We're less keen on plans that are like this, where we all have a great time, but then they just tend to gather dust and don't actually get executed on.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's quite often I talk to sort of startups, and they're so busy in this planning and writing business plans and doing planning, and I'm like, you just got to get a little something out there so that you can start testing it and getting feedback and getting research. And I think that's so important to start implementing the plan. So are you helping them with the implementation, or you're guiding their internal teams? How does that work?
Yeah, so we do help with implementation. We move on to be an advisor typically to the board, and that can be a formal non-exec director, or what we call a VNED. So it's an advisory role without all of those executive responsibilities. So we tend to sit with the board at that stage and help them perform to the promises that they've made, help them be compliant and retain their good levels of governance. And what we're also doing at that stage is helping them curate the story so that they're creating a value as perceived by potential acquirers and investors. The important thing we do then, Emmy, and you've seen some of this with the client that we share, is where we see gaps. So for example, there's a gap in digital. We can say, look, we've got specialists here. Emmy's brilliant. Talk to Emmy. We know what you need. And if you think about the client that we share, I mean, that's a great example of that. Put the plan in place. Where are the gaps in the operation? In this case, it's around digital marketing. Bring you in, Emmy, and we get that implementation, and all of the gains come back to the client at that stage.
That's so important. And we were just talking earlier about the importance of an outside perspective, for our own businesses and for our clients' businesses, and I think you were saying that you were, so many of your recent clients, that's exactly what they want. Why is it so important to get an outside perspective?
I think you're leveraging knowledge, and you're leveraging trust, and you're leveraging a different type of support. So, we end up as very trusted counsel. And actually, we do end up knowing a lot about the business. We do tend to know our customers very, very well, and inside and out, because a lot of their personal issues, they could be mental health or whatever it is, are very relevant and very significant in their business. So it's that bit of trusted counsel. And yes, we ask stupid questions, and yes, we ask dumb questions, but we ask them and we challenge. So it's not a sycophantic process. It's a challenge, because we now want to help you get to a certain place. And then I guess the other thing that we have is that breadth and width of experience, where we might see best practice with a scaffolding business that absolutely might make sense for a stem cell biobanking business. And that wider perspective, knowing the art of the possible and the options, are really important. our business leaders are really good. They know their domain, they know their sector, they know their business. But the bit that motivates them is here. All of these other things that you need to run a business and enable your business are hopefully what we can bring perspective on and bring that value to the table. So I think as a third party, we can do that quite objectively and direct it to a particular end game.
Amazing. Well, Martin, I'd like to keep these short and sweet at 20 minutes, and we're bang on 20 minutes. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on how businesses can scale and, what can we expect coming out of the pandemic. It's been an absolute joy talking to you, and I hope you'll come and join me on Clubhouse sometimes and share some thoughts and also be there to answer questions for people.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And next time, Emmy, I promise not to bring my builders with me.
No worries. I've had the same problem too. Thanks so much, Martin.
Thanks. Bye.